It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. It's a journal by someone that just really doesn't like to write.
It's the Sean Widmer Podcast. I'm Sean Widmer, a husband, a dad, and a college basketball fan. We will talk about college hoops here in a little bit. In fact, college hoops is the reason why this podcast is going up a little later than normal today. I'm actually recording this on Friday. I normally record the night before, but last night I needed a second. One, I watched college basketball until a little after midnight when the Samford-Kansas game ended. But something had happened during the day. I needed some time before I recorded, or I think I was probably going to come in here a little hot and maybe go a little too hard in the paint. I needed to collect my thoughts before recording today's podcast. So slept on it last night, lived a morning this morning, and now we record it in the early afternoon, just after 12 o'clock here in Lexington. So I apologize for the delay. If you normally wake up and listen to the pod on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, know that it's from that reason. Also today on the podcast, a couple things in the parenting world, because my daughter threw another dagger at me. She also did something fun last night that we're going to talk about. We are going to end the podcast today with Survivor talk. So if you are a Survivor fan, we'll get into this week's episode. And Kelly's, what are you into? Some people love this. Some people hate it. We're just diving into my life a little bit, a little state of the pod update, state of life update. Again, I know people dislike that. I know some people like that, but that's just openness of what's coming up. If you don't like Survivor, if you don't like that stuff, you've got probably 15 to 18 minutes of the pod today about other things, including the college basketball stuff we need to get into. We are on purple today here in the house. We're on Grand Canyon. We are on Northwestern. Now, I am somebody who a long time ago got into sports gambling. I'm in my early 20s, and I probably spent too much money that I didn't have on sports gambling. And it would put me in a bad spot sometimes. There was times it put me in a good spot. But there was times where I extended myself a little bit in the gambling world and got close to a bad situation. So I saw both sides of that. And there was a time in life where I realized I've got to stop doing that. I've got a problem with it. And so I need to cut out the sports gambling from my life. Well, that was when my buddy Kenny, he was in the same boat except way smarter than me. And he had a little more fun money to play with in the gambling world, extracurricular money. He had found the site Scent Sports, which I've talked about on here. We're now on to Fliff, F-L-I-F-F. And I bring that up right now for two reasons. One, the story I'm going to tell you about my son is the reason why we're gambling on Northwestern and Grand Canyon today. But also, for people out there who do struggle or maybe are interested in gambling but worried about the money part, Fliff is a great site for it because it gives you free money to play with. And there's a lot of sites that give you free money that leads to nothing. The reason Fliff is fun, it gives you $1 every day. If your account goes to zero, it gives you $1 every day. I think it gives you $5, like once a week, it gives you $5 if your account goes to zero. And the goal is to build up your account. And if you get over $100, either 50 or $100, they give you actual real money payouts because they have advertisers and stuff. And so they will give you actual real money payouts. So there's an incentive to play on their site because you start with no money in the account and you can actually win some real bucks. Kenny's done it a couple times. I'm actually over $30 right now on my account after a good gambling day yesterday. And so I'm on my way to try to get that as well. It's a really fun site, F-L-I-F-F. And I think it's a responsible way to get into gambling if you're like me and you know you have an addictive personality and could find yourself in trouble. Stay out of trouble. Use Fliff. Okay, enough. There's my PSA. Doing something good. Maybe doing something good for the day. We're on Grand Canyon here in the Widmer House. We're on Grand Canyon University today and Northwestern. And we're on Grand Canyon not because they're playing against St. Mary's, and I cheer against St. Mary's. Being a Gonzaga Bulldogs fan, they've been a thorn in our sides, so I find myself cheering against them. This is important that I bring up the St. Mary's, me cheering against St. Mary's, because they're Gonzaga's rival, because later on we're going to revisit that in the podcast. So that's not why I'm have money on Grand Canyon today. I don't care at all about the Northwestern game. I don't know anything about Florida Atlantic. I don't know much about Northwestern, but I know this. Yesterday morning, we're getting ready to take my daughter to school, and I'm getting at the part of the get ready time that I dread the most, and it's doing my daughter's hair. Now, 4 months ago, had you looked at my daughter's hair when I sent her off to school, you would have been worried about my daughter. You would have been worried about me. In 4 months, I've improved a lot. We're getting way better at it. The problem is my daughter she's very sensitive with her hair. And when you pull it, when you brush it, anything, she loses it. And I've watched tons of YouTube videos because I wanted to be gentle and not make her hair feel like it's getting pulled out. And I'm watching these videos, and I'm watching parents just grabbing a bunch of hair and pulling it tight and brushing it, and it's no big deal. The girl just sits there in the video, and they're like, oh, it's whatever. They're just sitting there. My daughter has a very sensitive scalp, I guess. So the combination of that and me not knowing what I'm doing can lead to it taking a long time to do her hair. So it takes about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how many times she kicks out of my hands and makes me lose my grip on the ponytail and the rubber band. But yesterday, I was thankful because my son chose the moment we were going to do hair to go upstairs, play with his Hot Wheels tracks by himself, and it was just in peace. Not screaming for me to come up, not screaming for Olivia to come up. Just, he was totally quiet while we did Olivia's hair. And I wasn't thinking at all about him being totally quiet because I thought he was having fun. But when we finished up Olivia's hair, and I hear Huck walking downstairs, which was great timing because he's going to hop in the truck with me. We're going to drop Olivia off at school. When he came around the corner of our stairs and I caught what he was doing, I had a total panic moment because my son was holding one big opened Crayola purple marker. And he walked right on up to my daughter and I. She was holding this Hot Wheels truck that he has, and he just took the marker and just colored on the truck. And I thought, that was way too easy for you to do that, which means we might have a problem. So I grabbed the marker, put it up, and slowly walked up the stairs. And it didn't take long for me to realize Pablo Picasso had a great time in the house while I was doing my daughter's hair. There was a nice line that led from the top of the stairs all the way to the bottom of the stairs where you had turned the corner. The door to my wife and my bedroom was purple. The wall right next to our washer and dryer, right next to the laundry room, it had more circles on it than I've ever seen in my life. The Rainbow Road Hot Wheels track had a bunch on it. The door to lead to their toys had purple. Our whole upstairs was purple. And I looked at my son and I said, okay, well, we are definitely on all the purple teams this weekend in the NCAA tournament. That's going to be the good that comes out of this. We're going to get some bets in that are going to do us well. But and we're in a hurry. And he's just grinning ear to ear. I look at his hands. His hands are totally purple. And thank goodness these were Crayola washable markers because I had a panic. I go, we're about to spend the next hour scrubbing walls so that my wife doesn't realize what happened. And I just grabbed a wet rag and I hit the wall, and these Crayola washable markers, they came off. You would never know there was anything near them. It was spectacular. I almost started crying. I was so thankful at how easy these are to wipe. But my daughter had left one marker out. We had put all of them away, and she had left one out. And he found it, of course, and just went to town with it. Cute. I mean, he was excited about it. I felt bad. I'm like, dude, you can't do that anymore. And so he's kind of like, oh, I thought it was great. But that was how our day started. And so we're all purple this weekend. That was our sign. Grand Canyon, Northwestern. I'm going to look at the rest of the Friday slate, see if there's a team I missed, because we're going to parlay all of them. It's fun. Having kids is fun. I will say, before I bury my daughter for putting another dagger in my back, as she did if you follow me on Instagram, you get bombarded with stuff. I apologize. But I had a video last night of my daughter when I told her, give me a go Zags, and she said, no, I hate them. And finally, Brandon called, and she had made it very clear she was just joking. So thank goodness. But she put another dagger in my heart, in my back today with something she asked about. And before we get into that, last night we had a little fun. Her bedtime is normally around 7:30. She goes to bed around 7:30. And last night I was just enjoying hanging with her, and I had the games on. And I said, you want to stay up late with Dad? She goes, yeah. I said, you can stay up as late as you want tonight, because I wanted to see what would happen. I've got her today. It's just me and Huck and her. So if she was going to be a nightmare, it was going to be on me, and I was going to be the one who had to clean up the mess. So we just stayed up. And she's sitting there and she's hanging out, and she had her books out for a little while. Then I let her have her tablet so she could play a couple of these weird addition games that she likes and put together fingernails on animals. I don't know what she does. And so she's sitting there, and I just saw her slowly fading away. And she fell asleep at like 8:30 with both her arms around our dog, who fell asleep cuddled up to her. The cutest thing in the world. It was so sweet. And I looked at her, I sent a picture to my wife. I was like, look at our daughter. What an angel. What an angel. Our firstborn, the one we got to learn all about parenting with. I just love her to death. And then today happened. And we're driving to the museum, which we do on Fridays when I've got the kiddos. We're driving down to the museum, and my daughter's always big on her birthday. Her birthday is really important to her. And she's had one at a trampoline park. She's had a birthday party at a gymnasium where they could do like the balance beam and stuff. And so she has this assumption that all of her birthdays, we go somewhere and do something fun, which is not going to always be the case. But that's been what she's known so far. So every now and then she'll think of it in her head. She's like, look, I think for my birthday, I want to go to Nana's swimming pool. And it's like, yeah, we would all like to go to Nana's swimming pool, but it's December 4th. And that thing is long closed by the time your birthday goes around. So we're driving and she goes, Dad, I know what I want my birthday party to be. I'm like, okay, what do you want? She goes, I want my birthday to be at Starbucks. And if you know me, you know that might as well have been her looking at me and just looking me dead in the eyes and say, hey, F you, Dad. That's pretty much the exact extent of what she did there. I despise Starbucks. Everything my daughter claimed to feel about Gonzaga, I feel about Starbucks for real. They are the reason why the Seattle Sonics are the Oklahoma City Thunder. Their owner sold that team, and so ever since then, I'm anti-Starbucks. I'm out on it. But this is all, the whole morning, that's all she's talked about. Dad, I've got the greatest idea. We can do cake pops instead of cake. We can do fun drinks at my birthday party. We can do it in Starbucks. I can have balloons that are green. She wants a Starbucks birthday. Now, we have got, 9 months to solidify the fact that that's the worst idea she's ever had. And I've got 9 months to sell her on any other idea in the world. But I need to get that started because I can't let my wife catch wind that that's something my daughter wanted. Because if my wife and her sisters find out, especially Casey, if they find out that my daughter wants to have a birthday party at Starbucks, they will figure out a way to make that happen. And it will be, I won't go. I'll miss a birthday party. Just continue blow after blow. My daughter's the cutest thing in the world. She'll be doing the cutest stuff. She's running through all the letters she's learning at school. She's slowly learning to spell words. She can add small numbers. She loves showing off all the stuff she learns at school. It's so cute. And then every time she busts out something that she knows is just going to kill me. So, Olivia, you got 9 months, girl, to erase that idea from your brain. Okay, let's get into the basketball thing. Because something happened last night that made it so I recorded the podcast today. I was just very disappointed with this yesterday. Tournament's great. NCAA tournament remains one of the greatest events in the world. Got to watch a ton of games yesterday. It was a great day of basketball. Great to be a Gonzaga Bulldog fan. A big win for the Zags, knocking off McNeese State. I was so thankful about it. I think if you listened to the podcast earlier this week, if you listened to me on Sack and Jack, with Jack Ferris. I never thought McNeese State, I thought McNeese State was trash. I didn't understand why all these people were picking McNeese State. Everyone was excited about them. They had not done anything this season to prove that. It was just like people wanted to cheer against Gonzaga. And so they said, McNeese State. They're like, this coach, Will Wade, is a mastermind. Dude, this guy was terrible last night. I couldn't believe how bad of a coach he was. McNeese State kept on double teaming. They were like, we're so aggressive. They're so aggressive. And then they would double team a guy like Anton, or they'd double team Ike, and they'd bring a guy from the opposite wing to double team on the block, and then our guy would just kick out to the open dude whose defender had just left him for a bad double team, and it was an open three. And at the beginning of the game, they tried it a bunch, and we had a couple open threes, and I thought, okay, well, this brilliant coach, Will Wade, will obviously stop doing that. He did it the whole game. I was like, dude, you're so bad at this. How are you not adjusting? We're killing you with these open threes. We're killing you. And he never stopped doing it. It was like, okay, well, this isn't working. I'm going to keep on doing it until it continually not works and buries us. They were not good. They were not a good team. So it was a good day to be a Gonzaga fan. And of course, it was a bad day to be a lot of other fans like McNeese State. And one of the teams that had a big loss yesterday, of course, is Kentucky. Kentucky loses to Oakland, and Jack Golke, a 24-year-old with the same haircut as Buzz McAllister, got red hot, and just torched Kentucky. Couldn't miss a three, total fire. He was amazing, and he was really fun to watch. So Kentucky loses the game, and I immediately, my brain went right back to one of the worst days in my life. Friday, it was a Friday in 2007, I don't remember the exact day, in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I woke up and realized, oh, yeah, Gonzaga's still out of the tournament, because the Thursday before, Gonzaga had got beat by Davidson. Steph Curry had put on a show, beat Gonzaga. They're out of the tournament in the first round. Stephen Gray, Josh Heitfeld, Matt Bolden, a team that I loved, is done. And I remember feeling like I had been kicked directly in the heart and was dying. It was one of the worst days of my life. I despised it. I hated it. Terrible day. And I didn't want to be bothered by anyone. I'm a diehard sports fan. I love sports. And it's a terrible feeling. It happened if you were a Gonzaga fan. It wasn't the first round, but Gonzaga was the number 1 seed going to Salt Lake City. They took on Southern. Southern kind of gave them a bit of a fit. And the next game, Wichita State hits a ton of threes, 14 threes in the game, and they beat the Zags. And it was just, you feel sick to your stomach. And so yesterday, I knew my in-laws, I know my brother-in-law Patrick, I know the in-laws, the sister-in-laws are all feeling it. UK loses, they're feeling it. And it sucks. My wife is bummed. And I look at my phone, and all these dumb people on my, and I apologize, but this is what, I mean, it is. It is what it is. I'm looking at my messages on Instagram, and my wife's texting me like, why am I getting messages on Instagram from people? And all these people who are Gonzaga basketball fans who they play Kentucky. They've played Kentucky 2 years in a row, beat them both times, but they're not like rivals. It's not, Gonzaga and Kentucky are not in the same conference. They don't play against each other a lot. There's no like animosity like Tennessee versus Kentucky. There's some animosity, right? I mentioned earlier St. Mary's on Gonzaga. There's like a buildup of over time of hating this. Some people that I didn't even think would do that were reaching out, and they're like, yeah, man, What are you telling the in-laws? Are you in it with your brother-in-law right now? No. There's nothing I can say, and there's nothing that anyone can say that is worse than losing on the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. And I don't understand wanting to rub it in. We were laughing. I eventually was talking to my wife about it because she was very irritated by it. Obviously, I would have been ticked. Oh my gosh. If I had had access to as much social media and getting a hold of people in 2007 as there is now, and if people would have been reaching out to me on Thursday night and Friday after we lost to Davidson, I probably would have eternally lost friendships. It would have been brutal because you're already at the bottom of the barrel, and then to get kicked around when you're down there, it's pathetic. So anyways, it was wild. Now, I will say there were some Tennessee fans who chimed in. There was some other SEC school people locally, some Louisville people who chimed in. I have a different feeling on that because there is a built-in 365 hatred for the other team. That's always there. But just it was like all Spokane people. It was all Gonzaga people, a couple WSU people who just came in. They're like, how about it? Kentucky loses. Tell your wife, take that. And it's like, okay, dude. It was disappointing. And it was embarrassing and it was pathetic. So it was a weird night last night, and it made me like very, I've talked about it on the podcast before where it's like, as you get older, you close your circle as to who you like really chat with a lot. And it's like it's things like that where you go, okay, well, let's tighten the circle a little bit more, because you want to have people around you who are more uplifting than not uplifting. And when you don't hear from people at all, and then the only time you hear from them, it's like, oh, I felt bad for my wife. My wife doesn't hear from people. She misses people from Spokane, and the first thing she hears is, oh, Kentucky sucks. And you're like, that's great. Yeah, I'm doing well. Family's doing good. New house is great. Love my new job. Where was it? So it was weird last night. Now, Kentucky's crazy right now. Woo! It's different out here. Gonzaga would lose those games, and it was a bummer, but you would go on and the next day and be like, oh man, okay, we got to focus on next year. What can they do next year to get better? Here it's like, hey, Coach Cal, come home and we'll put your head on a stake. It is wild. It is wild. And if you went to Facebook and Twitter and you started looking at UK fans' tweets, good Lord. It still is insane. People are going nuts out here. And so it's kind of fun. My team's still in it. My team's playing Thursday or Saturday against Kansas. They're favored by 4.5. Gonzaga's favored by 4.5. It's kind of fun to be in the middle of the storm. I just didn't want to kick the fellas while they were down. I think that's kind of Bush League.
Kelly's, what are you into?
Okay, we do it every now and then. The state of the podcast, the state of my life. At the very beginning of the podcast, this mentions that it's a journal about my life, and that's, for the most part, a lot of it what it is. Cover marriage, cover parenting, and then we talk about things that I like, whether it's sports or video games or whatever it might be at the time. One of the things I do like to do on the pod, we did it last year, and it actually worked out okay, is I like to set goals, and I like to do it on the podcast so that I have some accountability. So I know other people know I'm trying to do stuff. And last year it worked out all right because we tried to up the amount of times my wife and I hung out, and it didn't go well the second half of the year, but the first half of the year when we were in Spokane, I felt like we did a pretty good job making time to go out, go to dinners, plug into each other in terms of like just us talking, not plug in with the kids also, right? Just us. How's life going? What's going on? No kids around, and it was beneficial. I worked real hard on trying to get to Dunk last year. That was going well until we moved to Kentucky, which leads to today's thing. There's two goals we got right now. Today's thing. I weighed myself today. We are at 220 up in here in the Widmer house, which is way too much. That's way too much. That's too big of a number. And I did it because I was looking at one of the videos I had posted on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and I was like, the face might be getting a little bit too round right now. We might be getting a little too puffy in the face. And I go, I don't know if that's my thing. That's not what I like. So I checked it on the scales, and I was like, oh man, that's why. Holy smokes magokes. For me, that number doesn't work. For me, that's a number that makes me feel not great. And I can feel it, right? You can kind of feel it when you're getting out of shape and it's just uncomfortable. I feel it with my clothes, the way they fit and all that stuff. So I thought, okay, let's get on the pod. 220 right now. 200 is the goal. I got to get down to 200. And so I know that it's not easy. Like you don't just lose 20 pounds, but it takes some discipline. And so I just got to get after it. And so now it's out there. Now everyone knows. So if you're out with me and you see me go for like the second drink, or I'm eating off of your plate because you have leftovers, chop my hands off. So we just got to be I got to be a little dedicated to this. I got to be a little disciplined in that, which is very possible. Move around a little bit more, and that's the goal. So that's where we're at right now in terms of that. So now it's out there. The other thing I've got to do, and we've talked about growing the podcast. We're in a spot right now in the Widmer house where things are good. Things are really good. My wife likes her job. We're happy we moved to Kentucky. My kids are great. The in-laws are very fun. I've met some great people out here in Kentucky. Do I miss my friends in Spokane? Dearly. But things are good out here. We love our house. Things are great. I'm at a point right now where I'm on the job hunt. It's a little frustrating, and I mean, it's a lot of frustrating. But I'm at a point right now where I'm being very picky with what I'm looking at. And so because of that, it gets some of the jobs are a little harder to just rope in. They take, they're a little more... They're a little tougher jobs, but I'm trying to get those. Like I said, being more picky about it, and we're fine. That's fine right now. That we're not at a point where I need to be desperately looking to work anywhere. But there's also part of me that's like, okay, the podcast takes a little bit of money to run, and it's like just extra stuff where if I'm not working, we're not looking to just go crazy with our finances and just like blow money on random stuff. You got to watch it a little more until I get a job. Then my wife can get nuts at Nordstrom again or whatever. She can convince Olivia to have her birthday at Starbucks again by going there and getting cake pops with her all the time. But right now it's like, okay, we got to do something. So one of the reasons I want to grow the podcast, full transparency, is it would be nice at some point to be able to generate just a little bit of income coming in, enough to cover the cost of the podcast and anything that goes around it. So then that is anything I spend on this is just a wash. So at some point, I say this because transparency. At some point, I'm into my Kelly's. What are you into? I'm into this podcast. I like doing it, but there comes a balance of, is it worth it for where we're at right now, and what I pay to do this, and the time that it takes me to do the podcast, and getting nothing out of it other than just really enjoying it, purely a hobby. And so my goal at some point is to generate just enough revenue off of this, just enough money to offset that cost. And one of the things that might be coming down the line, and I bring it up here because if it's a terrible idea, just let me know. And that's I'm going to work around some other ways. I'll probably start a Patreon for it. I know a lot of people do this. I know everyone gets tired of hearing about them, and it's like whatever. But what it is a chance to support. It supports content creators. If you like the podcast, if it's something that brings you joy, and you feel like you get $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 of enjoyment out of it a month, and you want to help out, we're going to probably open up a Patreon where you can sign up, become a Patreon subscriber, and it'll give you like an option to do, $1, $5, $10 a month. And then you get access to, I'm going to throw up some random podcasts that are truly like, you think these podcasts sometimes are bad? The ones we'll throw up there will be long format, really deep diving what's going on here at the Widmer house. Like, they'll be long ones. And if you're a Patreon member, you'll get access to some of these podcasts that won't be out on the normal podcast feed. So I think we're going to do that. If it's a terrible idea, that's why I'm here to you can go, that's the dumbest idea. But I'm not looking to bring a whole lot of money in from it. It would be nice to offset the cost of the podcast so that when my wife goes, really, mister, you don't have a job, you're going to spend this much money making the podcast because it's not free. I would like that conversation to not be happening as much. She doesn't really care, but it's just annoying enough. All right, so there you go. There's my Kelly's What Are You Into? I'm into the pod, but there's the full disclosure on where we're at in weight loss 2024 and the state of the podcast. Have I bored you enough yet? Let's get to the comments. There's not a lot of comments today. In fact, I think there might be one or two. I think there might be one comment this time. And it came from Yvonne. She says this: the phone games she's playing right now are Crossword Jam and Christmas Sweeper 3. Used to play Bejeweled, but got into Christmas Sweeper. Try root beer barbecue pulled pork. Dennis Patchen used to make a root beer barbecue pulled pork at the KXLY building for the potlucks, and it was the most unbelievable pork. It was so good. I'm in on that, Yvonne. I have not ever tried to make it, but it sounds awesome. She said, husband sends me Facebook recipes to try it. That's great. Hey, Facebook, there was a while, was it Tasty? And they put all those videos, they would put out the quick recipe videos on Facebook. I don't know if they still do, but they were everywhere for a while. I went through all of those, and they were so good. A good Facebook recipe is a good time. Hang on. All right, I'm in on that. Yvonne, thank you for that. And I'm tempted to try out those phone games. I'm tempted to. There was one other comment here. Man. From Misk, and it will lead into our next segment. They say, thankful you are anti-Banu. Character on Survivor. More on that in a second. So annoyed with him and his million hearts. All right, thank you for listening to the podcast, Misk. And thank you everyone else for listening. I know today's podcast was a lot more me venting than anything else, but I wanted to give you the state of the pod, and I really wanted to kind of back up my wife a little bit because I felt like she got crushed last night, and maybe some of it for the right reason. Some people who messaged it was like, okay, you had it coming from them. You were annoying about Kentucky to them. But then there were some people I'm like, we don't know you well enough for you to come in here and stir the pot up. So I wanted to defend my wife a little because I love her to death. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Let's get into Survivor talk. Whew. Okay, it was a weird episode this week, right? It was a weird episode. Banu gets voted off the show, and there was not even a vote. It was the most boring, but kind of great last 15 minutes of Survivor in a long time. There was something weirdly nice about knowing Banu needed to go home, and he just went home, and there was no sneaky play behind the scenes where, maybe Bono's not going to go off because there's another plan in place. Banu was a liability and a terrible Survivor player, and it was nice just to see the cast members go, you stink, you're out of here. And they voted him off. But the show itself, I thought was a fun episode. You had two challenges. Anytime there's a rewards challenge and the immunity challenge, I love that. I thought both challenges were very fun. It was funny that the Purple Tribe finally won a challenge, and it was a rewards challenge for something they couldn't even use. Fish. Because they had no fire, no way to cook the fish. So I thought that was kind of funny, but they did finally win something. Then, of course, they lose in the actual idle challenge, partially because Banu doesn't follow the rules and sets them behind pace by a good amount by not jumping off of those crates into the water and just jumping off the side of the platform. I mean, he was terrible, okay? He was terrible. It was time for Bono to go. And I know if you watched last week's episode, this is my big concern right now with Banu. He went to his journey and he told the other tribes that he was being, pretty much that he was being bullied back at camp, that he was told that he was a fool, which hadn't happened. And I got real worried, and I haven't looked because I didn't want to get irritated by it. I hope there's not a storyline going on that Banu was mistreated on the island, because he wasn't. And I could see that being a thing where it's like Banu's like, oh, but I was mistreated. I was just trying to be positive, and then I was just trying to be honest. What are you doing on Survivor, dude? Like, wrong. He said he was a super fan. Wrong game. Because if that's what you're looking for, you didn't come to the right place. You came to the wrong place for that kind of stuff. This is not the platform. Survivor's not the platform for kindness and honesty. Okay, and I don't want it to become that. So hopefully, a guy like Banu comes on the show and everyone's like, oh, well, we don't want people to get treated poorly. We don't want people who are just honest and nice to get raked through the coals. Well, that's not the case. And Banu, wrong place to come in and want to try to do that. And if you try to do that and it fails, you need to understand why that is. So I was thankful he left. I'm hoping there's not that storyline brewing out there by Survivor Nation that Banu was wrong, because he was bad. And he was liability over and over and over. If you want to go on to Survivor, you've got to know how to play the game. And how to play the game is not just to be a leaky faucet of information and just constantly spewing information. You also have to be able to control your emotions to a certain extent. You have to be able to keep a straight face even though you don't want to. You have to not be mad at people even though you want to. You have to not be overly friendly with people even though you want to. Like, it's a big challenge in controlling your normal everyday emotions. And Banu was not able to do that. So you don't win the game. So he was dreadful at the game. I'm glad he's gone. And I thought Tiffany, Kenzie, and Q were totally fair to him. The things they were mad about, I thought they should have been mad about. And they were, even when they were irritated, they would come back and apologize to him. And I thought that was nice. I thought that showed some class. That someone like Kenzie, Tiff, Q, they would all have separate moments where they were like, look, man, we're frustrated by you, but like, we don't hate you as a person. You just aren't playing this game well. And it's killing us. And they want to win $1 million. And he's going to kill their chances at $1 million. All right. The other thing from the episode that I did want to bring up, because hang on. We had to stop the broadcast instantly. My daughter had gone to the bathroom, which takes her, requires her to get completely butt naked to go to the bathroom. And then she just walked into the room to say hello and let me know that she had gone. So I appreciate that, Olivia. Okay. Where were we? Oh, yeah. We normally, at the end of the Survivor Breakdown award, good players and bad players. I really only had, outside Banu, one bad player in this episode. And it was Jem, who I think is great. But I think she has made a mistake with something she did on this episode. She found a Beware advantage, and then she put the Beware advantage, which says on it, dig directly below where you found this, and there's the box that people have found and unlocked, and she re-hid the Beware advantage with nothing underneath it, which this is why I was... there's a couple of things in my head I was concerned about. So everyone starts digging. They don't find anything. And now Jem has created paranoia, which you don't want to have at your camp. Because Jem's camp right now is pretty solid. And they haven't lost any challenges. And they're all getting along fairly well. And I don't really understand why Jem, knowing they have numbers going into the merge, why she's stirring the pot with her alliance and causing paranoia, because now people are like, well, who put the Beware advantage there? And now they're trying to figure out who it was. And it's causing distrust in a bunch of people who had trust. I thought it was a really bad move by Jem. And she didn't even put anything there to hide. Like, at least make an idol or something, put something underneath there. I guess that wouldn't have worked either because you need a note. I just thought it was a really bad move by Jem to cause paranoia and bring up an uneasy feeling by hiding this beware advantage. So her first misstep of the game. Otherwise, I thought people had pretty good episodes. I thought Tiffany had a really good episode. I think that Kenzie and Tiffany, I thought they showed a lot of class, apologizing and just the way they talked to Banu, being frustrated with him, but still to his face, being, in a moment, being very honest about it in a nice way and not a mean way. So I thought Kenzie, I thought they handled that situation well. Hunter is a beast. Hunter is, there's nothing else to say about it. He's an absolute maniac at the challenges. And in the rewards challenge and the immunity challenge, he was the best person in both of them. Whether it was taking the rings and throwing them up over the pole so that they slid down the pole, he crushed that. Then the basketball shot. He was, did it take him 5, 6 shots to make all of his when other guys were shooting forever? Hunter's a beast. And I actually thought that Tevin had a good episode. I thought it was kind of cool with the fish thing, and he had the story about his dad, and he gets those fish cut up. But I thought Tevin had a good episode because he showed a little bit of, good observational skills, that he is able to look at Soda and say, look, this is somebody who is very likable, and very likable by Tevin. Tevin likes Soda. But being able to separate that and go, okay, we need to maybe make moves to get her out because she's a liability. And sometimes that happens too late in the game, and you've allowed these people who in these beginning stages of the game where you're in your tribe and you're just trying to keep your tribe happy, you will run into somebody who's a beast of a player and is a social genius like Soda seems to be, and you let them slide because they're fun and they're easygoing and you like having them in your pocket and you like working with them. But then they get into that merge and they're like, uh-oh, we unlocked the monster, and now the monster has taken over the game. And I thought it was pretty smart by him to realize Soda could be a liability in the future, and latching on to Hunter and going, look, we might have to cut off the head of the snake because she is really, really good at camp, which she seems to be. So I thought Tevin had a good episode. I thought that was a pretty heady play by him. We'll see if it pays off. Soda has all the makings of somebody who's going to be on the show for a long time. Okay, that's it for the podcast today. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Thanks for putting up with all my crap today.